All right. Let's bring in, joining us tonight, the man who really leads the criminal defense bar out there in Cleveland, Ohio tonight, Ian Friedman. Ian, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's take some time to talk about this jury tonight. But first, Julia, describe who the jury is. Men, women, ethnicity, what do we know about them?
This jury is made up of 7 men, 5 women. They range in age from 30s to 60s, and there are 4 African-American jurors, and the remaining are Caucasian.
All right. Ian, let me start here. Gender. How big of a role is gender, not just in the way they see the case, but in the way a jury deliberates? Do you think that the men group together and the women group together? From your experience, what are your thoughts tonight?
So from my experience, I have found that women on a jury are probably most critical and most able to read another female accuser. And in speaking with many, many juries afterward, we find out that the men are sometimes hesitant to take the lead because they want to hear from the other women and their experiences and their opinions on the case. Now, I believe that the jury foreperson in this case is a man. It's going to be interesting, I think, how they share their perspectives. And this is a really fascinating case because it's not a claim that's so simple, where it is clearly the woman was a victim, end of story, who did it. That's not what we have here. The issue that they're really going to be debating back there is, was this consensual or not? There's no denial that things happened. It's just who contributed, who did what, was there consent, was there not consent? So this is really going to be a question of beliefs. Is there responsibility on both sides here? Does the evidence show that this is just a simple rape, as the prosecution would have you believe, or some of these accusers, some or all of these accusers, engaged in this conduct to get something from it? It's really some tough questions. So I'm not surprised by 3 days of deliberation. Frankly, I expected this. I kind of wish that when we last spoke, we had made predictions, because at the time, this is what I had predicted. And I actually do have a belief, we'll get to, I'm sure you're going to ask me what will happen in this case. And this is tough stuff they're dealing with.
Oh, absolutely. Julie Jade, let me bring you back in here. So have you seen groupings of jurors, whether it's, when there's a sidebar, are the women all talking to each other? Or is there anything that's discernible about the way they walk in and out of the courtroom, or any other time that you have seen them, perhaps in a lunch break?
There has been some separation between them when they walk in now. Before, during the trial, they would all file in together, same amount of space between each person. But when they've come in for these readbacks, you do see this grouping of the men who are sitting on the back row. They are the 3 white males who are in their 30s or 40s, and they seem to be grouped together when they come in. And the rest of the jurors aren't speaking to each other. They come in, they sit on that front row. And there are 2 men that are the only ones who would be in the same demographic as the defendant. They are in their 60s, they're white males, and you can tell that they seem to be grouped together when they sit there on the front row, in the way that they are listening to the details that come out.
And do you think any of these jurors might be putting themselves in the position of either side of this? Like the men, putting themselves in the shoes of Harvey Weinstein, as icky as those shoes may be, and some of the women perhaps wondering, what would I do in those circumstances?
Yeah, absolutely. And the prosecutor in their closing asks them simply to use their common sense. So draw upon their own life experiences. So that's absolutely what they're doing in this case. And interestingly, everyone has their own styles, right? The defense lawyers, the prosecutors, they all want a particular type of jury that they're most comfortable with. In my experience, for this sort of case, I would have liked women on the jury. I have found that men oftentimes feel like they didn't want to take a chance, of letting someone go who may have done this, because therefore they may perpetrate this upon someone else. So I think this is going to be really interesting. And I think the women are going to have a lot to talk about here as to the role of women in this case. So, yeah, very, very interesting.
How about race? Does race play any role at all in this?
I think that would simplify it too much, because I think that you really have to look at life experiences. And so, race by itself doesn't suggest that people necessarily have a certain life experience. It depends where they're from, how they were brought up, what situations they may have faced. Yes, could there be an influence from cultural teachings and so forth? Sure. But this one here, I really think this is going to be just simply, do we believe these women? Do we believe, for instance, Vinny, do we believe that someone who's claiming to be raped will then carry on with the relationship? And it gets back to your question that you just asked me a moment ago. Would I do that? If I were the victim of rape, would I have dated? And you're going to have other people on the other side of the aisle saying, well, yeah, sure. If you're terrified that your career is going to be over and this is a powerful person, so it's going to go back and forth. And, the difficulty here is going to be, yeah, they're putting themselves in their shoes, but can they really? Can these people really put themselves in the shoes of Harvey Weinstein or these accusing actresses from the position that they are? They're not Hollywood, folks. So it's a little bit of role playing. It's a little bit of speculation. This task that this jury has will not get any more difficult. This is that's where they are on this thing. And that's why I am not surprised by 3 days. And with some of the questions they had, which I'm sure we'll talk about, it wouldn't surprise me if we went into next week.
All right, Julia, how did they look at the end of the day today?
They looked pretty tired. They had solemn looks on their faces. They walked out, their heads bowed just a little bit, not making any eye contact with anyone. It's a contrast from how they looked yesterday after they heard the readback of Rosie Perez. They were chuckling with each other, seemed like everything was great, and eager to get on with the rest of their deliberation. So it does seem to be, or have been, a much more stressful day today.
All right, Ian, it's time for you to reveal what you were going to tell us. What do you think is going to happen here?
All right. Now, there's a caveat here, the asterisk being that any qualifier, any veteran lawyer will always say you never know what happens at trial. I have to put that in there just in case I'm wrong. But I feel that if the jury can follow the judge's instructions, which is to limit the value of the other act accusers and factor out everything going on outside of the courtroom, all the statements going on and so forth, what happened in that courtroom, the facts as they were presented, were riddled with reasonable doubt. And I know that's going to be an unpopular thing for me to say, but if the jury can do that, and it's a big ask, but if they can, as Donna Rotuno and the rest of the defense team are requesting, I believe that this is going to be a mistrial or an acquittal is where I see this going.
All right. There's a lot of folks on social media agreeing with you, Ian. Folks have been following this case. All right, Julie Janae, thanks so much. We'll speak with you later in the program. Ian, stay where you are because we're going to take you down to Tampa, Florida when we come back.